Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. We have Elena Rybakina versus Jessica Pegula for the semi-finals of the 2025 WTA Finals tournament. Very much looking forward to getting into this one. Before we do though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Shout out to all of our supporters. Okay, so we've got Elena Rybakina, who's won all three of her matches so far in this tournament, looking in incredible form against Jessica Pegula, who actually has been looking pretty good herself. Has lost the one match though to Aryna Sabalenka. Sabalenka beating Pegula in 3 sets, a tight 3-setter in that. But Pegula does lead the head-to-head between these two, 3-1 in favor of the American. Rybakina will be hoping that her form will be enough to start chipping away at the head-to-head, whereas Pegula, she will know, at least historically, how she's been able to beat Rybakina and have confidence from that. So it'll be, in my eyes, a pretty even match given the fact that Rybakina, I think, is in slightly better form. But Pegula has the edge in the matchup between these two players. We're going to very briefly touch on who they've played at the tournament so far. Then we will talk about the head-to-head. I'll talk about the tactics and how I think the match will play out. And then ultimately, I will give you guys my prediction. So Pegula has looked pretty good, as I said. Interestingly, she has been pushed in 2 out of the 3 of her matches. Against Goff, she won in 3 sets. Against Sabalenka, she lost in 3 sets. And then against Paolini, it was a pretty impressive performance, 6-2, 6-3. I think Paolini has been ill though, so she's really struggled in this tournament. And it's a shame because it's never nice to be ill, and you want to be at the top of your game when you're playing the best in the business. When it comes to this type of tournament, it's the best 8 players in the world. Then we have Elena Rybakina. Now, she has looked very good. She beat Anisimova in straight sets, then Swiatek in 3, 6-1, 6-love those last 2 sets she won against her as well. And then she beat Alexandrova. So she was supposed to play Madison Keys. Keys pulled out due to either illness or injury, and she won that one 6-4, 6-4. So let's talk about the head-to-head. So 3-1, as I mentioned, in favor of Pegula. They first played in 2022. Pegula beat Rybakina in straight sets. Then Pegula beat Rybakina in 3 sets in Guadalajara, Mexico in 2022 as well. Then in Miami, Rybakina won. That was her single win against Pegula, 7-6, 6-4. And then in Mexico WTA Finals, Pegula won 7-5, 6-2. So I'm actually quite interested to see in these types of conditions who comes out on top. I would actually argue, given how the matches have gone, it's difficult to know because they played in Miami twice, back-to-back years, and there were different results. And Miami is a slow hard court, but then when they played on quicker surfaces, it seems Pegula has won. It's not a huge range of data to look at, if I'm being honest. It's 4 matches. It's not a huge amount. And you could argue that Rybakina actually was a better player in 2022. She won her Wimbledon title then, of course. And Pegula, you could argue, is a better player now. But I think form-wise, and we've seen, and you could argue that Rybakina has the highest ceiling of all the WTA players. I don't think that is that crazy to say. In terms of level, just specifically level. We know the consistency hasn't been there from her, but I'm talking about one-off matches. So how does this one play out, and why has Pegula been so difficult for Rybakina to play against? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about what Pegula does that is probably the reason why Rybakina has struggled historically. So Pegula likes to take the ball early. She likes to hug the baseline. And by doing that, she cuts Rybakina's time. She just cuts her time. And Rybakina likes to take pretty big swipes at the ball. She's got a pretty extended swing of forehand and backhand, and she likes to load on that forehand, really plant and set herself, and then really rock it through the ball. But because Pegula likes to stand very aggressively on the baseline or inside at times, she can redirect pace early. It can cause Rybakina a lot of issues, and it can rush the Kazakh. It also means, because Pegula likes to attack on return as well, if Rybakina is not serving at her best, then it means that Rybakina might be on the back foot or in neutral, especially on the second serve points. And that's not ideal for someone who I think bases a lot of her game on her serve +1 play. In doing so, in forcing Rybakina into having to really try and figure out her feet and her footwork and also her hands early when it comes to taking the ball a lot quicker than she'd like, it does mean that she ends up spraying a lot more errors than she'd like, because she's not going to play a counter-punching, super high margin game. That's not what she's about. She's about playing with power and precision and breaking down her opponent. She doesn't have that super defensive or even defensive really mode to go into. Pegula is also a very clean striker of a tennis ball, and because she doesn't hit a lot of errors, she's got very good shot tolerance. What that means is that it can also apply a lot of pressure to Rybakina, and she's very consistent. And I think Rybakina tends to struggle against a lot of players who tend to hit very flat and very deep as well. And Pegula is one of those players. She hits a very deep flat ball, generally speaking, especially compared to other players. Whereas if you look at Swiatek, for example, she hits a lot of spin. And if she's hitting a lot of spin with angles, it drags out Rybakina, and that's really difficult for her. But if we're talking about a rally ball, that's actually into the contact zone of Rybakina. She's 6 foot, 6'1". Pegula's hitting it flat and super deep. Rybakina's having to almost dig the ball out, having to bend down, get her knees down, at times dig it out. It's not as comfortable. It's out of her contact zone. It's out of her hitting zone. And it means that she's not able to hit as aggressively and as cleanly, I think, as she'd like, in able to dictate the points. So that, I think, is definitely an issue, especially on the forehand wing for Rybakina. And I think the other thing is, because Pegula is quite comfortable redirecting, she can take advantage of the Rybakina movement. Now, Rybakina has been moving pretty good, I would say, in this tournament, but she's still not an elite mover, in my opinion. So I think those are the biggest, points to talk about. And what I would say is that Rybakina would prefer it if Pegula played with a lot of height and spin and shape. I think she enjoys that, and she can tee up. So what I would say is that Rybakina's serve is going to be super important. They're playing indoors. It gives her a big opportunity to try and push Pegula back in her return position and ensure that she's not able to step in, be aggressive on return, and apply a lot of pressure. And then I think for Rybakina, she needs to be the one to... that will be a really good starting point, because that will help her serve +1 play. And she needs to be aggressive, get on the front foot, avoid Pegula getting into the rallies, extending them, and starting to punish her with a lot of depth as well. And then on the return games, I think she also needs to be relatively aggressive, but she needs to be very calculated in the way that she plays. Pegula's first serve can be quite potent. The second serve is definitely attackable. Rybakina should be looking to be aggressive on those second serve returns. And I wonder whether she'll come forward. She's not really the type of player to rush the net, but I know that in the last year or so, she's at least slowly started to come forward a little bit more than she would in the past. But I think for her, what's been really working well is the forehand, and especially that forehand cross. And if she can hit that forehand cross, that angle that we know she can hit so well, and she's been doing that, actually, to be fair, on the backhand wing as well. As good a mover as Pegula is, she's not as good as a Swiatek or Goff, and she might get the ball back into play, but it's not going to be a super high quality shot being dragged out, especially when the ball is coming as quickly as it is from Rybakina. She can hit very flat cross court, very acute angles that can really hurt Jess from behind the baseline. And Jess will either have to go for broke almost in and around the post, which is a very difficult shot to hit, or she'll have to go cross court, and that opens up a whole host of space in the open court for Rybakina to then attack. Matchup wise, I do think that Pegula is always going to be a pretty tricky opponent for Rybakina, but given the form that both players are in, I've got quite a bit of confidence that Rybakina will get it done, just because of how well she's playing. So I'm going to go with Rybakina, but in a tight 3-set match. I would not be surprised if Pegula wins, honestly. but I'm going to stick with Rybakina. Let me know in the comment section below what you think and why. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you in the next video.